Hello YouTube, my name is Sly. Welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this reaction. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Without further ado, here we go.
And it is called People Turning to Aliens. I'm guessing from the thumbnail I seen before I put that on there that it's wow, plastic surgery gone bad. I mean, that's just weird. That they know where that part can be real, but we're gonna check this out. Yeah, I know, right? We're gonna check it out. I'm pretty sure it's about plastic surgery. What? Wait.
Join me in my... From horrifying high heels to insane implants, join me in my spaceship as we explore some of the wildest examples of people who have tried to turn themselves into aliens.
I don't think all that's Photoshop. I think most of that's surgical. I'm sure some of it is Photoshop.
The quarter-life crisis. You hit your mid-20s, panic about your career, and consider moving to the country to raise sheep. We've all been there. But back in 2014, a French bouncer called Anthony Lafredo turned 26 and did something a little...
Hey! He was like a handsome guy in this photo. Before he did all that. Why would he do that to himself? I know it's self-expression, but sometimes too much is too much.
More radical. See, Anthony wanted to feel better about his appearance, so he got his tongue split, followed by some pretty extreme tattoos on his face and eyeballs. Eye tattoos are very risky as it involves injecting...
Well, I thought about getting an eye tattoo, but I got enough eye problems where it is. So I ultimately decided not to do it.
Ink between two thin layers of the eye, which can easily perforate it and blind you. Pretty much every doctor advises against it, but fortunately Anthony kept his vision and continued his body mod journey. By 2021, he'd assumed a totally new identity called the Black Alien. And to list all his modifications would take up the whole video. But his most obvious alien addictions are the full body tattoo and his nose, ear, and upper lip amputations. These are incredibly extreme procedures that involve removing...
You know, it kind of reminds me of the alien out of Alien Mine. You guys ever seen that movie? Yeah, I think it's what, Greg? What was the alien's name?
Significant amounts of cartilage and tissue before sealing the skin to prevent infection. But the alien didn't stop with his face, and he even removed 2 fingers on his left hand to create alien claws. Anthony also added new parts to his body by getting dozens of subdermal implants made of silicone to change the shape of his head and arms. In 2023, he announced he was planning to have his leg amputated and replaced with a bionic limb. But
oh, that's going a little too far there. I'm all for respecting yourself, but not to cost your own limbs. Fingers are bad enough, and they want to remove a whole leg.
As of 2025, he hasn't got the procedure done. Still, he says he's only 65% finished with his transformation, so who knows what body mods he's yet to get. Now, in France, extreme body modification is a legal gray area, as these invasive procedures are only licensed to be carried out by surgeons who typically aren't leaping to cut off people's ears. So the Black Alien has taken lots of spaceship rides to Mexico for his surgeries, where his longtime collaborator Gato Moreno operates. Anthony's drastic transformation has garnered him over 1 million Instagram.
I kind of think how that Mexico's that weird, doesn't it?
Followers, as well as some harsh scrutiny both on and offline. He's expressed difficulty in getting jobs or being allowed in restaurants, which is pretty sad. But to be fair, I think we'd all do a slight double take if we saw him at the Target checkout. Still, Anthony's goal has only ever been to feel more comfortable, and ironically, he said that he felt like the alien in his old body and feels more like himself with the mods. In this way, it makes his pursuit of the aesthetic goal pretty admirable. Although, if this is 65%, I'm nervous to see what 100% looks like.
Right.
Fashion fiends. Did you ever take a bold fashion risk and then immediately regret it? In these moments, it's easy to feel like everybody's staring at you. But the truth is, people are rarely paying attention to your appearance, unless you look like this. Hannah Rose Dalton and Steve Raj Bhaskaran make up the social media duo Fecal Matter, and their appearance is as unconventional as their
What
name.
the hell, a
The
band
couple's
name?
distinctive style aims to make them look as far from human as possible, as they use makeup to transform themselves into a wide range of aliens and monsters. Their looks are often characterized by matching shaved heads and creepy extra appendages like these horrifying feet shoes. But thankfully, as eerily realistic as their alien feet and skull implants look, these are only prosthetics made by the couple, not actual permanent modifications. See, Hannah and Steven met in 2016 at a fashion school in Montreal and started their Fecal Matter project shortly after. The freaky fashionistas often make the outfits themselves, and they've stated that their costumes represent their true identities and allow them to escape societal norms that they used to feel trapped by. They frequently go about their regular lives in full ghoulish glam, and this commitment has bolstered them to online fame. They have over 700,000 followers on Instagram, which has allowed them to launch a clothing line, release music, and collaborate with high-end fashion brands like Rick Owens and Jean-Paul Gaultier. So while their visuals may be the stuff of nightmares, the couple are clearly living their dream. Horn this way. You might think that the Black Alien and Fecal Matter are incredibly unique, but it turns out they have a brother from another mothership. Known as Human Satan, Michael Ferro Prado is a tattoo artist who spent over 25 years undergoing some serious mods for a beyond human look. As well as having over 80% of his body tattooed, the Brazilian native has also shaved down his nose, removed his ears, and split his tongue. But most notably, he's had 33 metal implants placed in his head that he can fit with various spikes, earning him a Guinness World Record for the most horn implants in 2023. To keep with this spiky theme, Prado also had his teeth filed into points, and more recently, he forked out just under $1,000 to install huge silver tusks on both sides of his mouth. He looks more like a space orc than your typical little green man, but Prado definitely wants to look extraterrestrial, because he stated multiple times that the Black Alien is an inspiration to him. He even got the guy tattooed on his leg and had his fingers removed and stitched to create a claw just like his idol. But Anthony Lofredo isn't the only body mod enthusiast who can match Prado's freak. Many of Human Satan's tattoos were done by his own wife Carol, who is also known as Mueller Demonia, or Demon Woman. She's similarly decorated with her fair share of body mods, including eyeball tattoos, a split tongue, and subdermal horns, just like her hubby. Talk about a match made in hell or heaven. Dame Dragon. At first glance, you might think this is just a convincing cosplay from Comic-Con, but get up close and you'll realize that it's no costume. This is Tiamat Legion Medusa, an artist and performer who's transformed themselves into a creature straight out of a fantasy movie. Tiamat goes by Dragon Lady Medusa online and proudly declares themselves as trans species, meaning they're half human and half reptile. They may not look like a sci-fi alien, but they're definitely extraterrestrial, and their draconic desires actually started way back in the 80s. Tiamat, who then went by Richard Hernandez, had a surreal dream about being bitten by many snakes and awoke believing that he had become a reptoid, like some kind of lizardly werewolf. But while Tiamat felt this way inside, their physical transition didn't start until years later in 1997 when they were in their late 40s working as a banker. After testing as HIV positive, they quit to take care of their health, but it took a serious turn for the worse to the point where they weren't sure they were going to live. From there, Tiamat decided they weren't going to die as a human, so they set about becoming a reptile. Unfortunately, this
Wow, that has to be dangerous, right? Not only for the person, but since she has, what was it, HIV or something like that, that's extremely dangerous for his artists and surgeons too. Because they have to take extreme precautions. Right. So, I felt sorry for the guy, but I also feel sorry for the people that he's having do this. They're taking a huge risk.
transformation wasn't as quick or cheap as a werewolf bite. Tiamat recovered to full health, but since 1997,
good.
they've spent
That's
over
good.
$83,500 on surgeries, including ear
Wow.
amputation and tattoos of scales all over their body.
I guess that'll mean that they're in remission then, because I don't think you never get rid of that. But I'm happy they're healthy now, you know. Be it they might look odd, but they're happy, I guess. That's all that matters, really.
They've even forked their tongue to mimic the way that snakes use their two-pronged tongues to smell prey. Hopefully Tiamat develops this trait too, because they also cut off the sides of their nose. Man, the pursuit of the dragon life knows no bounds. You're a lizard, Harry. I think most doctors would disagree with Eric Sprague's claim that there's more ink in his skin than blood in his veins, but if anyone was gonna achieve that milestone, it would be the Lizard Man, who spent over 25 years and 700 hours getting green scales tattooed all over his body. See, in the body mod scene, Eric is something of an icon. He was one of the first to really break the mainstream after appearing on Ripley's Believe It or Not in 2000, and he's since become widely recognizable for his signature green sheen. Prior to his life as a lizard, Eric was actually a PhD student in New York studying philosophy. But while he was in college, he became obsessed with movies like Godzilla and decided to use body modification procedures to explore what it means to be human. He held off on getting any procedures until 1994 when he started his tattoo journey. Then in 1997, he took his lizard evolution a step further and got his tongue split, becoming the second person to ever have the procedure. To all the split-tonguers out there, bow before your lizard forefather. Around the same time, he also got his teeth filed into fangs for the true lizardly look, as well as subdermal implants in his brow bone. They were made of Teflon as opposed to the modern preference for silicone, and the entire procedure was done without anesthetic. Yeah.
Oh.
Since 1996,
Talk
Eric
about high
has made
pain
a living
tolerance.
as a freak show performer in traveling circuses and sideshows, but his gimmick extends beyond his lizardly looks. He swallows swords, breathes fire, and pushes giant corkscrews through his head. He even holds a Guinness World Record for the heaviest weight lifted by an ear piercing after heaving a 35-pound beer keg off the ground.
Ow.
Man, my pet gecko never did that. I want a refund. Feeling feline. If someone told me to follow the ways of the tiger, I'd assume they wanted me to become more confident.
Now, I think I've seen somebody like this before. They have like implants in their lip, like put like fake whiskers with that. I don't know if it's the same person here that they're going to show, or if it's somebody different. In fact, I think one of the Hunger Game movies had someone that was tattooed up like that with the whiskers and all. But that kid just been Hollywood magic too.
Chase what I want in life and maybe introduce some tiger print into my wardrobe. But when a young Dennis Abner received that wisdom from a Huron chief in the Native American community he grew up in, he took it slightly more literally. He started going by the name Stalking Cat, and in 1980 the 22-year-old feline fellow underwent some serious surgeries to make this proverb a reality. He set about getting facial tiger tattoos and surgery to point his ears, split his upper lip, and flatten his nose to closer resemble a cat. He even got 18 piercings around his mouth that he
Yeah, this is the guy. This is the one I seen. But what was it? I think it might have been Believe It or Not, when they had the guy that played William Riker hosted. Can't think of his name right off, but I think it might have been on that.
could attach synthetic whiskers to every morning, like a daily feline affirmation. When he wasn't fulfilling his human duties working as a computer programmer or part-time carer for the elderly, he enjoyed climbing trees and eating raw meat. Hey, at least it beats Purina. Cat's operations were done by body modification artist Steve Haworth, but as Steve wasn't a qualified medical professional, he wasn't licensed to give anesthetic. So each of Cat's procedures caused immense pain, and just the thought of it is enough to scare the whiskers off of me. Though his procedures made him appear like an alien among humans, Cat found kinship with the furry community, becoming a recognizable attendee at meetups and conventions. But unfortunately, Cat didn't live to see the continuation of his legacy, as in 2012 he passed away at the age of 50.
That's sad. That is sad. But at least he was living the life he wanted to. You know, it's always sad when somebody passes. I'm just happy he was able to live life the way he wanted to. I mean, he wasn't hurting nobody. You know, he was just doing that to himself, having a good time. Yes, you call it furry to the extreme.
54. He far surpassed the 13 to 20 year lifespan of most house cats, but he's still passed tragically young for a human, and I just hope he's chasing butterflies and eating catnip up in the great cat tree in the sky. Fantastic. If I ever get into any legal trouble, I know who I want in that courtroom with me. Maria Jose Cristana, or the Vampire Woman, is a mother, tattoo artist, and former lawyer who held the Guinness World Record for most modified female from 2012 to 2023. See, the Mexican-born vampire's modification journey began at 14 with her first tattoo, a logo of the black metal band Bathory. But her first extreme mod didn't happen until she was 30, when she got 4 titanium horns implanted in her forehead to symbolize her strength after leaving an abusive marriage. Since then, she's racked up 49 modifications, with 96% of her body covered in tattoos and fang implants, which is what earned her the nickname Vampire Woman. She claims she always loved vampires as a child and now is committed to transforming herself into a true alien creature of the night. This vampiric visage has made her one of the most recognizable faces in the body mod scene, plus she even managed to achieve eternal life with her own wax figure in Ripley's Believe It or Not's museums.
Oh, wow,
While you may not
nice.
catch her in any courtrooms these days, she's kept plenty busy looking after her 4 children, running a tattoo studio and clothing line, as well as lecturing in women's groups. And you definitely need super vampire speed to have the time to do all of that. Tattoo the max. You may be thinking, if the Vampire Woman lost her world record for most modified woman in 2023, who could have possibly taken it off of her? Well, allow me to introduce Esperance Luminesca Frezina, an Army veteran who stole the crown with 89 modifications, and set a new record for the most tattooed female ever in 2024. 99.9% of her body has been covered, including her palm, scalp, tongue, gums, and eyeballs. As for her body mods, Esperance has dozens of piercings, a split tongue, and 15 subdermal implants, including large ridges in her forehead and winding snake implants up her arms. Combined with the blackout tats, she looks like a xenomorph from Alien. However, even before getting her first extreme body mod in 2014, Esperance was no stranger to more radical forms of self-expression. Before then, she'd experimented with suspension, which involves carefully piercing a performer's skin with hooks and then lifting them in the air. To each their own, but that seriously gives me the heebie-jeebies. Esperance cites her inspiration for these modifications as the ability to convert her body into a moving canvas with the theme of turning darkness into beauty. To that I say, well, you only live Esper once.
Right.
Metalhead. There's a boogeyman that haunts every parent, and his name is Mom, I want a piercing. But if that boogeyman had a face, I reckon he'd look a lot like Rolf Buckles.
Wow, that's a lot of piercings. Ooh. I don't think I should have any piercings for
The current Guinness World Record holder for most pierced and modified male. He's defended both titles for over 10 years with a staggering 516 modifications, including 481 piercings. Remember how I said Esperance holds the female body mod title with only 89 mods? Well, Rolf is in a league of his own. But he's also a shining example that it's never too late to follow your dreams, as he only started getting mods in 1999 at 40 years old. His first tattoo was on his calf, and since then he estimates 90% of his body is covered, including his eyes. Of his 481 piercings, over half of them are located, well, down south, with another 158 on his face. He's had his entire mouth and brow line pierced to the point where he's actually run out of space and can no longer fully close his lips. Furthermore, he also has 35 subdermal implants, such as silicone spheres in his arms and horns in his head. So why is Rolf doing all this? Well, he just enjoys it. In fact, he only realized he was a contender for the world record when he met other record holders and realized he had more piercings than them. So from accidentally smashing world records to permanently piercing his mouth open, Rolf is a pretty unique guy. And if aliens ever mistake him for one of their own and want to abduct him back to their planet, all they'd need is a magnet. Paranormal prosthetic.
Wow! Talk about Uncanny Valley. Ugh, I fit right in with those three dwarves. That is way too far. Wow.
When people get any body modifications, they always run the risk of suffering from dangerous complications that can leave them looking like aliens for all the wrong reasons. In 2019, an image of a woman went viral for her totally botched plastic surgery after a procedure reportedly left her with a shaved-down nose and huge lips. She went from
Welcome
never
home,
end.
brother.
insta-glamorous to intergalactic real quick. But fear not, because this alien face is actually the work of a London-based prosthetic artist called Luis Baptista. The look is comprised of 2 silicone prosthetics that were built around a 3D cast of the model's head before being applied straight to her face. In an Instagram post,
Oh, so that's not permanent then. That's just a prosthetic. Yeah, okay. Ooh, that made me worried. I thought she's a victim of bad surgery. Glad she wasn't.
Luis later explained that the photos showed a character called Helena, who he created to shock and inform viewers about the dangers of plastic surgery. Consider me shocked and informed. See, not everyone who transforms into alien does so permanently. Makeup artist Ciara McCown posts her own alien creations on TikTok as she hand sculpts prosthetics out of clay before molding and painting them to create incredible alien masks. For a similar
nice,
full-face
nice.
facade, special effects artist Sidney Cumby had put his prosthetic prowess to the test with a foam latex helmet and plastic eyes to create a convincing mask. Combine that with this alien hand by the Australian makeup artist Ranarat, and you've got a classic alien look. Or for a more minimalist approach, Poppy Shepard is a special effects artist who's poured silicone into a handmade mold to create some freaky-looking mushroom prosthetics. When applied, she looks like a decaying alien with fungus growing on her neck. And if aliens do take over,
Hi,
I'm
Silver,
going to
how
give
you
these artists a
doing?
call to
How you doing today, Silver? We're watching a BMX video right now. People turn to aliens. I want to try to get something creepy that wasn't another ghost video. I thought I would check this one out. I apologize if this is trippy for anybody. I didn't think about that before I thought about showing this. I'm glad you're alright. How's your day been?
help me assimilate. Pure fantasy. Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit are works that undeniably defined a genre, inspiring blockbuster movies, a TV show, and a Brazilian man to embark on his own unexpected body mod journey. See, Rico Ledesma is no stranger to body alterations, as he got his first tattoo at just 15 years old.
Okay.
But it took him decades to branch into more extreme body
Well, I hope
mods
you
as
have
he
a great
turned
day,
40
Silver.
and decided to become a real-life orc. Talk about
Thank you
a
for joining
Middle-earth
us.
life crisis. In Tolkien's books, orcs are humanoid, ogre-like creatures known for their grotesque appearance. They're not exactly on my vision board, but Rico was set on the transformation and turning himself into an otherworldly creature. Despite having facial tattoos before, he covered them all up with solid black ink to resemble orc skin, as well as tattooing his eyeballs. Most orcs are covered in scars and wounds from their many battles, so Rico took a modern shortcut to mimic the war-torn look by surgically removing pieces of his ears, nose, and lip. Most notably, he also implanted huge silicone tusks in his mouth, which must make eating pretty
See that poor kid? He's like, let me go! Oh, then we get visit with a friend. That poor kid. One boy's
He
like,
also implanted huge silicone tusks in his
hey, kid's like, what am I doing?
mouth, which must make eating pretty awkward. These tusks cost around $510 and were fitted with the help of a dental professional who's probably just hoping Rico doesn't come to her for his yearly teeth cleaning. She'd need a pickaxe to scrape away any plaque. Aside from the pricey tusks, this project has actually cost Rico very little, as most of his tattoos and modifications were done by his wife, Krishna. Krishna is also a body modification
right?
enthusiast with tattoos, subdermal implants, and amputated ears, making her the perfect match for Ledesma. As they say, there's a lid for every pot and a tattoo artist for every orc. Spread your wings. Ted Richards is from Bristol in England.
Ted Richards is from Bristol, England.
But he's best known as Mr. Parrot Man.
He's best known as Mr. Parrot Man.
Okay, never mind, that's gonna get old quick. But in the same way captive parrots have an uncanny ability to mimic human speech, Ted has mimicked them right back by transforming his appearance to resemble the tropical birds. See, the former shoe factory worker is the proud owner to 5 parrots. So proud, in fact, that he underwent some pretty intensive modifications to look just like them. In 2014, the 56-year-old started his journey by tattooing.
Now, this is what I imagine if they made the Birdman of Alcatraz with modern aesthetics, what he would look like.
his face and getting horns inserted into his skull. Then in 2015 alone, Mr. Parrot Man got his tongue split, a peace sign branded on his shoulder, and his ears removed. Today he has over 110 tattoos and 50 piercings, which has taken a lot of time and money. The ear removal alone took 6 hours, but it was a necessity for Ted because parrots have no visible ears. I don't think parrots have 50 piercings or a peace sign brand either, but who am I to clip his wings? The loss of his ears led to a slight reduction in hearing and a discovery that Ted could no longer wear his glasses. So he later had 2 metal pins inserted into his head to hold up his specs instead. But his transformation wasn't just cosmetic. He even legally changed his name to Ted Parrot Man, just in case it was unclear what he was going for. Personally, I'd say he looks closer to an alien bird creature than an actual parrot, but his modifications earned him multiple appearances on British television, and Ted seems pretty happy with his transformation. So it turns out national fame and happiness is only around the corner. You just need to ruffle some feathers to get it. Taking Elfie. In the movies, aliens are often depicted as terrifying, bloodthirsty creatures. But if I was an extraterrestrial, I'd sack my publicity manager immediately. I mean, not all aliens are scary. Just ask Luis Padron, a self-proclaimed space elf who hails from the star cluster Pleiades. Now, of course, this is just a persona, and Luis is actually a human from Argentina. But his fascination with fantasy began in childhood, where it served as a retreat from the bullying he suffered at school. As Luis grew up, he decided to bring that fantasy into reality, and today he spent over $80,000 on plastic surgery to make him look more like a space elf. These procedures include getting his ears cut and sewn back together into an elfish point, as well as jaw reshaping and a nose job. He even surgically changed the color of his eyes from brown to blue, which is medically unapproved and extremely dangerous, as it involves using a laser to burn away the melanin on your iris. It was reportedly done without anesthesia, and for 30 days, Luis couldn't even look at stars in the night sky without experiencing blinding pain. But eventually, the pain subsided, and Luis has stated he still wants to get a facelift, muscle implants, and a rib removed to make his waist thinner. If there's one thing these artificial aliens do have in common, beauty or beast, it's that this is one expensive lifestyle. I wonder if somewhere across the galaxy there are extraterrestrials spending this much cosmic cash to look human. Demon Dad. I'll admit I'd get a fright seeing this guy in the school pickup line. At first glance, I think this was a demon finally coming to punish me for all those times I forgot to return a library book. But this alien figure is actually just Raiden Cranio dos Caras, and he's like any other dad. The Colombian tattoo artist loves reading, playing sports, going to the park, and of course, extreme body modification. Regular dad stuff. Raiden actually got his first tattoo at 12, and at 17 ventured into body mods with flush tunnels in his ears. Now he estimates that 86% of his body is covered in tattoos, including his eyeballs. As well as his tats, Raiden has also shaved down his nose, amputated parts of his ears, and had subdermal horns embedded in his forehead. But while he looks like an alien from another planet, he's actually the furthest thing. Raiden got the work done due to his love of artistic expression, and he spends his free time volunteering with animals and having cookouts with his wife and daughter. Has there ever been a more fitting case of don't judge a book by its cover? He looks like he'd slash my tires when in actuality he'd probably stop his car to help me fit a new one. Seeing Red. Some men want to look like Captain America, others want to look
Ah.
like Thor. But some people have completely different tastes, like Henry Rodriguez, a tattoo artist from Venezuela who wants to
Right.
look like
I
this
understand
guy.
that.
Look, of all the Marvel studs, Red Skull wouldn't personally make my list, but while Marvel's superheroes have inspired a whole generation of men to get under a barbell, this supervillain inspired Henry to go under the knife. See, the Marvel fanatic desperately wanted to look like his favorite comic character, claiming he'd admired his unique face shape and attitude, so starting in 2012 he completely transformed himself with red facial tattoos, eyeball tattoos, subdermal implants, and the removal of his ears and nose. Red Skull may
Ew.
not be an alien, but Henry definitely looks like he's from Mars after spending $32,000 on these modifications and 130 hours under the knife. His modifier is Emilio Gonzalez, a medical school dropout turned tattoo artist and body mod enthusiast. Getting
Medical
surgery from a
dropout.
guy who didn't finish medical school is pretty wild, and it'd be pretty easy to dismiss this extreme evolution as a little crazy. But Henry actually underwent several psychiatric evaluations before his surgeries and came out clean every time. Furthermore, if you know Red Skull's extremely immoral origin story, you might be concerned to hear that he's Henry's favorite character. But Rodriguez has publicly stated that he doesn't share the character's ideology, so it looks like this guy is sane. He's just a super fan of the supervillain look. Well, Space Cadets, it's time to touch back down on Earth and end our trip through the cosmos.
Yeah,
Let me know in
how'd
the
you like
comments
that?
below which one of these alien
that, chat?
transformations was the
You might have to apologize if I triggered anybody. That wasn't my intention. But I hope you enjoyed it. And I will say this, these people aren't harming anybody. They're just doing their own self-expression. They might look freaky. That's right. They're not. They're just trying to be themselves. And if they're willing to flesh out the cash, then... But at least have a professional to do it. Unlike that one that's used unless a doctor. They're going to need to take extra rest than necessary.